Hi, welcome back to our channel. I'm Amin here, and today we are going to talk about which format you should with, RAW or JPEG. Here in this video, I will talk about their difference, advantage, disadvantage, and what I prefer to use. First, what is the file type and what are their difference? Number 1, the file type. RAW files are like digital film where the file is uncompressed and all the details captured by the camera sensor are kept in the file. Things like colors, white balance, shadow and highlight. Whereas JPEG is processed and compressed by your camera software to a smaller size and less details. Process means your camera has already developed your photos as a final product. Number 2, the dynamic range. RAW files have the advantage of containing high dynamic range. With those details, you can adjust the white balance, exposure, and many more in the post in case you didn't nail it right at the scene. You can adjust or recover overexposed or underexposed photo much easier compared to JPEG files in Lightroom or Photoshop. JPEG has the disadvantage of having lesser details. If your photo is over or underexposed, or your white balance is wrong, you still can recover in the post but only slightly compared to RAW file. I will show the dynamic range difference later in the editing example. Number 3, file size. This is where most photographers prefer JPEG over RAW, their file size. As I mentioned earlier, RAW file contains a lot of information compared to JPEG, which means that RAW file is a larger file compared to the JPEG file. Example here in my camera Nikon D4 and Z50, each RAW file size is around 20 to 30 MB per photo, while JPEG 3 to 4 MB only. Your camera will usually tell you how many shots can fit into the memory card. If you set your camera to JPEG format, it will show more shots you can snap with the memory card compared to selecting RAW format. With different file size, memory card types and handling are also different. With RAW formats, you will need bigger and faster memory cards, more storage, and a suitable desktop or laptop to handle the file, and these are usually more expensive. While JPEG does not need super fast memory cards and basic desktop or laptop can easily handle or load the file. Number 4, photo process steps. RAW files take more steps to process or develop into usable photo compared to JPEG files. RAW files, you will need software like Lightroom, Photoshop, or Capture One to view and edit it. Not all PCs support reading RAW format files without this software. The advantage with JPEG file is that they are already processed by your camera and you can send or use the photo straight from your camera, upload to a website or any social media. To use or send the RAW file, you will need to process it first and convert them to JPEG format in the post-editing before they can be used anywhere. Okay, let's move on to Lightroom. I will show you the dynamic range difference and what can RAW file do versus JPEG. Now in editing example RAW versus JPEG, I have two identical photos here. One is in RAW file, one is JPEG format. I will do all the editing here in the RAW photo and paste all the settings that I changed in RAW to the JPEG, and we'll see the difference later. First, with this photo, I will adjust the noise reduction. I apply the noise reduction because I shot this photo at ISO 4000. It's kind of noisy here. Okay, here noise reduction, maybe around somewhere here to make it less noise. Okay, let's end this photo. It's quite dark here. It's quite dark. I increase some highlights, and maybe I want to bring up some details on this building here. Maybe I increase a bit of the shadow and a bit of exposure. And yes, in RAW format, you have control over the white balance here, where JPEG you not much, you only can change like a bit only, and if you adjust too much, it will pixelated. Okay, let's go back to the RAW photo. And also in RAW photo, you can change the picture profile from your camera, because with RAW file, your camera kept this detail in the file, where in JPEG there's no option for it because your camera already processed and compressed it, and discard this detail. Okay. Okay, back to the raw file. Now I'm going to apply the same setting, whatever I did, to the JPEG. I'm going to sync it, and we will see side by side the difference. Okay. I'll zoom in here. In 100%, you can see how noisy and how pixelated the photo in JPEG, where in the raw format is still sharp and a lot of detail. This shows raw have more detail compared to JPEG, and you have more control on raw file over JPEG file. Okay, let's move on to my preference. What I prefer to use. For me, as an event and wedding photographer, 99% of the time I will shoot raw. If the job requires an instant update, or we call as live update, I will shoot raw plus JPEG. Yes, raw file take more time to transfer, consume more memory space in memory card, your computer, and take more time to process. But to me, it is worth it. JPEG also has its own benefit, as I mentioned earlier. But for me, I choose to do some minor edits to make sure the quality of the photo I send my client are the best they can be. Okay, I hope this has helped you understand the difference between JPEG and RAW file. Let us know in the comment below what format you prefer to use. And if you have any question, leave them down below too. Thank you.